Hello guys and girls. In this video I'm going to go through Obsidian as usual, but this time I'm going to start from scratch. So I'll be creating a vault from nothing to a structure that is very similar to the one that I use in personal life. I hope that it's useful. I also go through a few plugins and the configuration that I use in Obsidian so that you can kind of get a feeling for some of the choices that I've made that I feel are really optimal. Naturally, you can structure your vault and your configuration exactly how you want it, but in this case, it might serve as a useful basis when you're just starting out with Obsidian or just want to try something new and are looking for inspiration. I know that we've been silent for a while. The channel has not gotten the attention that we usually give it. That's because a couple of reasons. We were traveling a lot and I actually moved to London, so I'm now living in London. And on top of that, I had Corona as well, so it took a little bit of time to recover, but we're fully back and we're looking forward to create really interesting videos, dive into new topics, and also invite some new guests onto the podcast. I hope you enjoy this video. Let us know if you have any feedback, comments, or questions, and have a wonderful day. All right, let's get started. I've already created a vault right now. It's called Walkthrough. What I'll do is I'll start with my basic structure initially, which is based on para. I can actually go through what para means just by setting it up. All right, so let's start with creating the first folder called areas. Click here on new folder. And then I personally always like to use emojis for my folder names. So what I'm going to do on a Mac is press Control Command Space, and then I'll get the emoji picker here. And I want to go for yin yang. So this is what I usually use for my areas, because I feel that areas is kind of a balanced thing. And this brings me to what areas are. In para, which is a structure for your second brain that I also explained in another video, definitely recommend you to check that out. The link is here. Para basically allows you to separate all your digital information into a pretty fluid structure. And I think it fits very well with what Obsidian allows you to do, but also the concept of evergreen nodes. And I'll get into that a little bit later. Basically, what areas are topics of your life that you continuously come back to. Now, in a second brain, this, in my case at least, is represented as, for example, exercise or personal growth or the inbox, which is a concept I'll explain to you in a bit, but also particular domains that I'll keep returning to. I think areas overall allow you to keep a finite, relatively small set of topics or literally areas that are important to you and in your life, and that you can keep coming back to. Now, in Obsidian, you can link nodes. So I think a really good way to use areas is by actually linking nodes, for example, in another folder to one of your areas. And that's why I use domain roots, as I call them. And I'll set that up in a bit as well. So let's continue. We have the areas folder right now. Then the next one is projects. I'll open the emoji picker again. And I'm going to look for a dragon, because I think projects really kind of have this feeling of you need to work hard to get them done. And overall, I think the elegance, but also the strength of a dragon kind of reflects the way I would like to approach projects. So there we go, projects. Projects pretty straightforward when it comes to definition. Basically, it's a set of things that you'll probably do, I hope, with a due date and probably related to one particular goal, right? So it could be do my administration for the year 2020. That's an ideal project. Or it could also be read this book and process all the notes, or maybe studying for an exam. Those are generally projects that you'll return to and basically keep track of in Obsidian as you gather notes. Now, I'll also get into task management in Obsidian, which I think can be done, and I'm actually doing it right now using a really cool plugin for Kanban boards, but I think it's not absolutely optimal yet, but it will probably head into this direction given where the Obsidian ecosystem is going in terms of plugins. So then we go to the next folder, and that'd be resources. And I'll use a light bulb for this. There we go. Resources. So resources are a little bit more vaguely defined. In your resources folder, you can basically put anything. So in my own, I'll have notes on books, I'll have notes on people, I'll have all the notes of meetings, etc. But basically, overall, in the resources folder, you'll want to put stuff that does not belong to a particular project directly. Could still be related to it, but you can make a link. Also does not pertain to a particular area very strongly. So a meeting note, for example, can be around a project, but overall, I don't want my meeting notes to get lost if I archive my project, right? So if I have all my meeting notes in the project folder and I'll archive the project folder, then my meeting notes are gone. I also personally like the log effect here, and I'll show you what that is also in a bit. Now, let's create some areas. In my own situation, my own second brain, one of the areas I have is the inbox. That's the most important one for me, actually. I think this one works well. The inbox. The inbox basically is the folder where all your new notes can be created. So whenever you create a new note, you'll want to make sure that it gets into your inbox. And then frequently, in my case, I do it more or less every week when I do my weekly review. I go through my inbox and I put my notes in the right place. This makes sure that you also reiterate over your notes. So the notes that you've taken during the week while you were busy can be put in the right place, but also you'll actually get the chance to review them, maybe change a few things, etc. And I think this organization practice is a really important thing for managing a second brain properly. So I'll also show you kind of how I use an inbox in a bit, but let's continue on the folder structure first. You can also create a new folder by using a right click. So there we go, new folder. And in this case, I want to have domain roots. And just to make it a little bit faster, I copied the name of the folder already. So there we go, domain mastery, I call it. In domain mastery, basically what I try to do for myself is set a few domains that I'm particularly interested in. For example, DevOps or cryptocurrency or physical fitness or in psychology and economics and data science. And all those topics I will return to quite a lot. I found that looking through my second brain is extremely useful using the graph view. What I like is that given those domains are domains of interest, but also where I spend time on and make notes about, what I'll often have is that I'm actually looking for inspiration or ideas in a particular domain, but also understanding where maybe I have a lot to learn or where my focus has been more than other things. It's also a nice way to kind of learn for yourself, like what have I actually done or what have I spent time on. So if we have a domain, for example, for programming, all my programming notes are intended to be related to that particular domain, and then I can open the graph view for that note. All right, so we'll create another folder, and that folder is personal growth. So personal growth is as it says for personal growth. Oh, I see, actually I made a mistake because I keep everything lowercase. So domain mastery should actually be lowercase. Okay, there we go. So this is my areas folder. I'll have 3 areas here. I personally have a lot more, but it's out of the scope for this particular recording to actually add all of them. So I'll continue to projects. Now, I'm also not going to copy all of my projects, of course, but I'm just going to create one that I think kind of exemplifies what I would do with a particular project. So as you may know, I am currently head of technology at Bucks Crypto. So that's where the project's going to be. And I'm going to be working on DevOps improvements. I think that's a really important project. Has a lot of weight to it. Okay, so I'll go through that in a bit. Now, we have resources. Resources is actually a more interesting folder, I think, overall. There, I'll have logs. All right, so I'll have logs. I also have templates. I usually use this icon for that. Templates. I have Kanban tasks. That's actually where the task and all your Kanban boards will be stored. And I have a vault. A vault is where I keep stuff that has to be secured. It's probably encrypted, but it will still sync using Obsidian Sync, which is end-to-end encrypted as well. I think it's quite handy to have this always available. Usually there are text files that just contain sensitive information that is encrypted using GPG or perhaps something else. You can use anything that you want, of course. And last but not least, I'll have Zettelkasten. The Zettelkasten is an amazing system that I'm really, really fond of. Actually, it was not the last. This is the real last. That's files. Just added this one as well. Okay, so now we have a lot of resources. We have a project, and we have some areas. This is the initial structure. I don't choose icons for my projects, by the way, because I think it's not necessary, and sometimes it's just too hard to create or find an icon for every single project. All right, so the next thing I'm going to do is go through areas and specify a little bit more. So here in domain mastery, we'll have, say, domain. I always like to use the home icon for this because it kind of indicates that this is a root. It's a domain root, and the domain root pertains to programming. And we'll have another one. Domain root. Economics. And let's do one other. That would be domain root. Exercise. And fitness. Okay, well, you know what? I think actually health might be a better one. Yeah, now we got it right. Okay, so we have 3 domain roots here. That's a good start. Whenever we create a new node, I create a new node. Now, this is actually where the magic begins. So now we have a few domain roots. I'm actually going to create a node now to show you how the domain root system works. But before we do that, I think it's important to finish the initial setup. And that is by installing a few plugins, but also configuring the basics. Okay, so now we're going to walk through the settings a little bit. And we're going to change a few things to kind of optimize Obsidian. Of course, this is completely up to your own preference. I'm just going to do what I like. And if you don't like it, then you can change it. So I'm going to turn off readable line length. Because then the nodes actually become full width, which is really, really handy. I like folding headings. So enjoyable to fold headings. And also indents, I actually do like folding. Showing line numbers is not really that useful. Tabs I do want. And I actually also like Vim key bindings. So then next. Files and links. Confirming file deletion is not something I actually need. I do want it to go to the Obsidian or the system trash. I'll keep it in the system trash. I actually like to automatically update internal links. I always use this. The location for new nodes, this is an important one. You have to put in this folder specified below, and then we're going to pick inbox here. So that's, as I said, it's the folder where all the new nodes will be created. The link format is shortest path when possible. Absolutely, I like it. Wiki links, yes, amazing feature, let's do it. I also want to do detect all file extensions, because sometimes I'll have some files in there that I do want to see, because I'm also using Obsidian in that sense as kind of a file explorer. So I'll mark that as on. And the default location for new attachments, that's going to be... Okay, so this is where we're going to store all files, right? So if we attach an image to a node, then that's where it's going to be saved. Okay, next up, appearance. I like my stuff dark, so let's do it. We're going to keep it dark. I do want to be able to apply custom CSS. Font size is absolutely fine for me. Now, I don't have a theme yet, but I'm going to pick one. That's going to be minimal. Let's use the minimal theme. Let's use the minimal theme. Fetching CSS. Awesome. We're there. Look at that. Super minimal. I do want to increase the font size a little bit. Right, so that's that. Then we'll go to hotkeys. It's going to be nice. Delete. To delete a current file, I want to do this. And I don't really care about that. All right. I think that's more or less move file to another folder. Command M, I think, is really useful. And we're going to come back to this once we've actually installed a few plugins. That brings us to the next point. So this is going to take a little bit of time as well. So we want to search, yeah. Quick switcher, yes. Graph view, yes. Backlinks, yes. Tag pane, yes. I already marked that on. Page preview, yes. Start, I like start. Daily notes, I'm going to use a plugin for that, so that's not necessary. Templates, I'm going to use a plugin for that as well. Zettelkasten prefixer, absolutely, very handy. Random note, nope. Outline, yes. All right, let's see. Slides, not really useful for me. Haven't used it. Workspace is absolutely really handy. Not using it that often, but definitely worth. Publish and sync. So I don't actually have a Obsidian account with a license for this particular vault. But if you do, then publish and sync. It's worth reading up on. It's definitely worth enabling, especially the sync if you also want to use Obsidian Mobile. Right now, Obsidian Mobile is only available for people that support, or like they have a license for Obsidian. But I don't think it will take very long until the app is going to come out publicly. The app is basically, in user experience, the same as Obsidian. It's just on a smaller screen. So I think what they did is they just used the same code base. And it really does already work quite nicely. I'm really happy about it. And I use it every day together with Obsidian Sync. Then, the most interesting part, we're going to enable some community plugins. I want to turn off safe mode. I'm a risk taker. And calendar, great idea. I actually tried it. I don't really use it that often, so I'm going to keep that where it is. We're definitely going to install the advanced tables and we're going to enable it. We're also going to install and enable the sliding panes. It's actually funny, I always saw this plugin and I thought, because I checked Andy's site quite a lot, really cool. I thought that's not great for my own second brain, and then I installed it, I think a few months back or a few weeks back, and I love it. It's really, really useful, so I can definitely recommend that. Templater, this is such a useful plugin. I went through it in my last walkthrough as well. They changed the syntax for templates a little bit, but it's still so valuable. Day planner, not going to be using that. Natural language dates, I also don't really use that. Node refactor, well, data view is really handy. I'm not going to go through that in a lot of detail in this walkthrough, but it's definitely worth trying. Syntax highlighting, absolutely. Outliner, very useful. So far I like it a lot. Checklists, love the idea. I'm not really using it, but I'm willing to give it a try, so maybe I'll do it in another walkthrough. Okay, we're almost there. There's a few things that I still want to install. So the minimal theme actually has a plugin that allows you to change some of its settings. I think it's quite useful. And this is such an amazingly useful plugin. Kanban. Absolutely going to enable it. It's helped me a lot. Slated is actually a really cool idea, but I'm finding that I'm not really using it. So I'm not going to install it this time. And this is also a really, really useful one, periodic notes. So you can set up a daily note, which will basically use a template to create a note every day, and the note is named after the date. You can do the same for weeks and months, and this plugin is really quite a find. It was actually recommended by someone in the comments, so if you're looking at this, thanks a lot for that recommendation. I love it. It's really, really useful. I think we're there. I think this is... no, there's one plugin I've forgotten. That's the Workbench. Now, a lot of plugins. There's a lot of other stuff out there as well. I've tried a lot of them. Folder Node also, but some just, they don't really work perfectly for me. So then I just don't use them. But so far, these are plugins that I use actively, and they definitely improve my life. So we installed all of these, and we enabled them. Then we're going to go through some configuration. I'm going to leave advanced tables as it is. The command palette, by the way, super cool new addition to Obsidian. I think it's quite handy. Basically what it allows you to do is when you open the quick switcher, which you can do with Control P, then it will actually show some actions that you've chosen here on top of the list, which can be really quite useful, especially on your phone, because there you can kind of do a quick action to open all the possible commands that you have. But of course, the interface for the phone is quite a lot smaller. So if you're on your phone, you can use the command palette to, for example, creating a new node as well there, but also searching, for example. So it makes it a lot easier to navigate through. Also, I actually like to split vertically. And that's it for now. The data view. Okay, so I'm going to leave this as is as well. Now Kanban, that's going to be really useful. Now, before we can actually continue configuring plugins, we'll need to set up a few nodes and such. And that's first for Kanban. So we have two important things that we have to configure here. There's going to be a little bit of extra stuff later as well, but the main important thing is the node template and the node folder. So what I personally always do is in my templates, I'll have a node, and that's the main node template. And you can already see that kind of odd, but it works after you've gotten used to it. The title of the node is shown vertically here, and that's because of the plugin. This is the sliding panes plugin that I just told you about. So we have this node, and I'm just going to paste what I originally have in there. This is my current main node. Pretty simple and straightforward, but this allows me to keep a pretty consistent structure. This line is the most important one to highlight here. I've also talked about that in a other walkthrough that I did, my previous one. Here, I'm just picking the current date, showing it in a particular format, but also making it a link, meaning that this links to the daily node, which is really useful because then you can use the daily node to go through all the nodes that you've made on a particular day. Right, so this is my main node template, and I also already have the Kanban task folder because we created that before. So now the Kanban plugin will allow us to pick the main node template for tasks, and we'll have the Kanban tasks. Perfect. I'm gonna leave the rest as it is. I think it's actually good enough. We don't really need to spend a lot of time in configuring everything, I think. The minimal theme settings, yeah, check it out. Make sure that it aligned with your own preference. For me, the defaults are pretty decent. I changed a few things in my own second brain, but this is really quite doable for the walkthrough. Outliner, I like this. I like to use the improved list style, so I'm gonna flip that one to on. Page preview, nothing to see there. Periodic notes, also not really interesting. Well, this one can also use a little bit of extra configuration. I like this more, which will basically flip the header. So going here again, now it's here. I like this better. I don't know, for some reason, for me, it's like more intuitively to read it like this rather than like this. So I guess it's maybe some genetic predisposition or something. Right, so sync, you can configure that on your own if you have everything set up for that, but you could create a user vault. Like this is, for example, my second brain, my own, when I set up Obsidian sync with my phone app. Yeah, it works really well. So it's always a shame, by the way, that some of the plugins don't have the picker for folders, because it really, makes it slightly harder if you use emojis for everything. So there we go, resources, templates. That's it. Trigger templater, and this is the best feature of templater, triggering it on new file completion. Because that basically means whatever node you create, it will run templater on it. So that means that you can use your templates very intensively, which is extremely useful. Workbench. Yeah, it's a super useful plugin. Basically what it allows you to do, and I'll show it also in a bit, is you create one node that allows you to link or put other nodes in it, but it's basically a running node of all the nodes that you are still working on. For example, if I have a lot of projects that are relevant right now, I can use the workbench to be aware of what notes I haven't finished yet, or kind of what topics are important still to look at, or meetings I've had. It allows me to resurface things a little bit more efficiently because it's basically just one collection of notes I think will deserve some attention in the future. And you can set a shortcut to add it there. Then we have the Zettelkasten prefixer. Now, this I'm going to also set to inbox. Inbox. So what Zettelkasten prefixer allows you to do is whenever you create a new Zettelkasten node, you can actually put the date name in front of the node. This is really standard in Zettelkasten. I'm actually going through what Zettelkasten is in another walkthrough, which I'm linking to here as well. And that's where you can get more information on Zettelkasten. For now, I'm going to say that template file location is our main node template as well. And the Zettel ID format, I think, can be this. This, I think, is fine for now. There we go. Now we've configured the plugins, we can continue with some of the settings. In particular, what I would like to do is new Zettelkasten node. Whenever we create a new Zettelkasten node, it's going to actually allow us to use the Zettelkasten prefixer. And what is nice about this is whenever we create a new node, we'll automatically be prefixing it with a date. And I think this is really useful because I always want to have a date in front of my node, because it allows me to be aware of a timeline, but also it allows sorting on date immediately, which is really quite great. Okay, there's only one thing, and that's the link workbench. There we go. Link the current node page in your workbench. For me, that is Control L, and there we are. And then also insert template. For me, Control T. There we go. Now we've configured the plugins. Our Obsidian vault already looks quite a lot different than it did initially. I also realized that I made a small mistake, which I'm going to quickly correct. All right, now we have everything configured. That's quite a lot of work. We are now going to create a new node, and we're going to do that using the shortcut I just created, which is Command N. So let's move Command N and create a new node. And that was it. This video is slightly shorter than I originally intended to, and that's because the amount of plugins that I introduce here is actually quite large. So to go through all of them would take a lot of time. I realize it might be a better use of both our time if I actually create one video per plugin that I use and go slightly deeper on how these plugins work and how you can use them in your own setup. So in a follow-up video, I'll talk about the Kanban plugin. So that means that you can kind of get into how to organize tasks and such with Obsidian, but also the periodic notes plugin, the templater, and much more. For now, I really hope that you found this video useful. If you have any comments or questions or just thoughts you want to share, please do so in the comments. We always reply to whatever comments you provide us with. It's very useful and interesting for us to understand what you think and what kind of things are not clear. It helps us decide what videos to create and also what things to actually mention in the videos. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in a follow-up video.